Mr. DJ with another Lost 45 from the Sock Hop years. And how about this? An exuberant record, an up-tempo rockabilly sounding record by Pat Boone. Yes, didn't do as well as his ballads, but boy, he really stomped it out on this record. Now, he's not a rocker. He's not a rocker like Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, or Elvis. But he had his moments. He was approaching it. He was approaching it on this record. He was getting there. Billboard's Hot 100, 1958, October 13th, 1958. If I can find it on my, here's the tab for my good fortune. The name of the record, Pat Boone. It's sort of a gospel. It's like a song of thankfulness. Gospel, rockabilly. I mean, this could have been, I could see this being recorded at Sun Records. Although it's hard to imagine Pat Boone recording at Sun Records. I know what you're saying. But this song's got the ingredients. He's got a nice voice too, no doubt about it. Pat Boone, for my good fortune at no, gosh dog it. It leapfrogged from 54 to 23 the week of October 13th, 1958. I'll get into more of the chart stuff in just a minute. I couldn't find out too much information about this record, unfortunately, or even the album from which it came from. But here's the thing about Pat Boone: 63 singles in his career, most of them in the 50s and early 60s. 25 of those singles hit top 20. Number one singles, some of his biggest hits: April Love, I Almost Lost My Mind. You still hear I Almost Lost My Mind a good bit on XM's 50s on 5. And of course, he covered some of the rock and roll records, Ain't That a Shame? And this record orchestrated. The orchestra led by Billy Fawn on this record, For My Good Fortune, by Pat Boone. Two songwriters. One of them, Bobby Stevenson, wrote it. The other guy who wrote it. And this is probably why this was such an up-tempo record. The guy who wrote this record, Bobby Stevenson and Otis Blackwell. Otis Blackwell, one of the greatest R&B songwriters of all time. He either wrote or co-wrote Don't Be Cruel by Elvis, All Shook Up. One of his early successes as a songwriter, Fever, done by Lil Willie John, and also covered by Peggy Lee, and later in the mid-60s covered by the McCoys. He wrote Handyman, co-wrote Handyman. Jimmy Jones, I believe, did that. 1960-61. Co-wrote Great Balls of Fire, wrote Breathless by Jerry Lee Lewis. The guy was a rock and roll, he was a soul man. And some of it crept up into this Pat Boone record. Gotta give Pat Boone just a lot of credit for covering an R&B record like this. I don't think this record's a joke at all. Well, I've already said my piece about this record. Anyway, not one of his best known hits though. Doesn't compete with his ballads, his slow records, known for his slow records. Very reassuring to the parents. A lot of the kids, well, but their parents like, hey, I hate Elvis, but this guy Pat Boone, he's safe. I'd rather have my kids listening to Pat Boone than listen to Fats Domino. You know the score. Anyway, let's go back to Billboard's Hot 100. October 13th, 1958. Peaked at number 23 after making a huge jump. 31 points from 54 to 23. It stalled at 23. It's almost as if people were thinking, this is not a Pat Boone record. Why is it such a hit? Let's let this thing die out. Still, rockabilly. Love that jangly guitar. Listen to that guitar. It's rockabilly. And you hear it in some of the garage stuff in the 60s and some of the British Invasion later on. Not that they were influenced by Pat Boone, but the music. For My Good Fortune by Pat Boone on Billboard's Hot 100 for 11 weeks. October 1958. Pat Boone, For My Good Fortune.